Hi, my name is Bruce Hull. I'm a faculty member at Virginia Tech. I work in the Center for Leadership and Global Sustainability. I'll bring up that website here so you can see it. There's a lot of cool stuff if you want to go check it out. I've got a couple tasks I want to do in the short amount of time I have with you. One is to convince you that the real challenge here is leadership, that we need to figure out ways to get people to collaborate, coordinate, and solve the challenges. That we actually have the science, the technology, the tools, the policies, the economic incentives to solve a lot of the wicked challenges, wicked sustainability challenges that you've been looking at all semester. And so that's a contention, that the real challenge is leadership, and there's an important role for you. If you want to have impact, you need to have some leadership tools. The second big point I want to come up with, what I want to share is to define what I mean by wicked challenges, because these are really difficult to solve, and that's why we need a particular type of leadership. Third thing I want to do is define leadership, so you have a sense of what that is, and give you some idea of how you can play an important role and skills that you should be trying to acquire so that you can make an impact. And then the fourth thing I'm going to do is give you a couple examples to show you how some of these leadership skills for wicked problems have been used in the past to solve challenges that you're familiar with. Okay, with that, let me get started. We've been looking at what I call wicked problems this semester. Things like planetary limits, green buildings, water and drought issues, food, recycling. These are wicked problems. And what is a wicked problem? It's different from what many call a tame problem. A tame problem is kind of one where we're pretty familiar with. We know how to solve. We know how to build a car. People go to work. They've got a boss. They got a paycheck. They can get hired or fired. They know what the outcome is. They know the car is fast or safe or beautiful or whatever it is. But a wicked problem, the people are distributed across maybe a nation, maybe the world. Like climate change, they don't even know they're connected to the problem. There's not any one person that can tell them what to do or hire or fire them or reward them. These people are also different from one another. They've got very different motivations, whereas in a tame problem, I might have a motivation of a job, or at least I know who the boss is and I need to please the boss. Whereas in a wicked problem, I've different cultures, different languages, different reasons. We may not even agree on what the problem is. Climate change is such a great illustration of this. We don't know whether we should be focused on 2 degrees, 1.5 degrees. Does it matter at all? Should we be focused on mitigation or adaptation? What the solution is? Should we be taxing or capping trading price put a price on carbon? Should we have big government involved? Should it just be a business-led solution? How do we solve? There's a lot of disagreement even on how to solve it. So the differences among stakeholders make it really difficult to get coordination and collaboration, and the distribution of stakeholders make it really difficult to get coordination and distribution. So that's why we need this special type of leadership for wicked problems. I wanted just to get a handle on this jargon of wicked, because it's really important when you're trying to figure out how to solve the problem. You need to figure out what type of problem it is. Okay, now let me define leadership. Okay, leadership is another one of these contested and ambiguous terms, but it's really important to get your head around it. It's often thought of as somebody who is a leader. Right? That's one of the connotations. There's somebody out in front. There's somebody with an office with a corner view, somebody with a title or control over the budget or something. It's one person that's telling the rest of us what to do. There's a leader and followers. Well, that doesn't work for wicked problems. It might work for a tame problem, like a leader of a company, but it doesn't work for a leader of climate change, right? We need to all lead from where we are, from across all the differences and the distribution around the world of these problems. You need strategies that work when there's not one person in authority, where instead everybody needs to figure out or somehow be engaged in the solution, right? That's a very different type of leadership. And here's a very powerful way to think about it. And if there's anything that you remember from this session I'm giving you is this definition of leadership, which is direction, alignment, and commitment. Direction, alignment, commitment are the 3 things that exist whenever leadership has occurred. So what I mean by leadership then is whenever a group gets together and does something, where they collectively agree to do something and they do it, leadership has occurred. So you might have a different word for leadership than I'm using. You might call it collaboration or coordination or collective impact. I'm calling leadership anything a group does to get stuff done. Now, a group may be a team that you're working on for a student project. It may be a football or a basketball team, or it may be a university. It could be a state, it could be a nation, right? When does that group get together to decide and align and commit to action? That's leadership. So direction is where are we going? Problem are we trying to solve? Does everybody understand the problem? Alignment. Have we decided what the tasks are that need doing? Is everybody doing a task? Are some things being left undone? And maybe everybody's doing the easy task or the high reward task. Noah's doing the high risk or the low reward task. Is everybody committed? Are there foot draggers? Are there people who are trying to sabotage it or don't agree with the solution? If we've got direction, alignment, commitment, then we can solve just about anything. But that is easier said than done. And I just encourage you to think about it. You can add a lot of value to any group process if you sit back and say, hey, do we have direction? Do we agree on what we're trying to accomplish? Do we have alignment? Have we decided what the tasks are that need doing? And are they all assigned? And are people doing them? And are people truly committed? Are we willing to sacrifice a little bit for the team here and get stuff done? So if you've got direction, alignment, commitment, stuff is going to get done. All right, so how do you get direction, alignment, commitment? Right. In a few minutes, I'm going to give you a couple examples, but I just want to show you that you had Mark Stern here last week. He's got a whole book on this topic, different tools and strategies for getting stuff done. I've got a book on it, and there's just a whole bunch of tools and strategies that you can learn. I teach about this. Mark teaches about this. Lots of programs around campus that help you develop these leadership skills. But the goal is to get direction, alignment, and commitment. So stop for a minute and think about that. Then I'm going to give you some examples. Let's say you're concerned about sustainability and you want to protect biodiversity, habitat, water sort of issues. Where do you focus your energy? How do you go about solving a big, wicked problem like that? Well, one thing you would do, particularly if you take my course, which focuses on systems thinking, is you say, okay, well, what impacts biodiversity and water? What are some of the big impacts? Start to unpack that, and you'd find out that, well, hey, it's food. Food and agriculture are some of our biggest impacts on the land, biodiversity, all the farming and irrigation has huge, huge impacts. So, okay, well, let's affect food. Let's affect what people eat. Well, now we've got a really wicked problem, right? We've got diet, and this is something that has got so many people involved in affecting what other people eat. There's the farmers, there's the marketers that promote different types of food, there's the processors of the food, retailers and grocery stores, there are chefs and cookbooks, and then of course there's the consumer who's pretty set in their ways and don't necessarily want to give up their hamburger, because beef is by far the biggest consumer of water and land and emitter of carbon and greenhouse gases. So how do we keep somebody from eating meat? That's really, really difficult thing. One thing we can do is show them a figure like this and say, hey, you need to change your diet. Look how much water goes into making your hamburger. Look how much biodiversity is lost, how much carbon and methane have been emitted. But we know from a lot of research that education, information just does not have much impact on people. You can talk forever at them and they're not going to change their behavior. So there's a group of folks that it's called the Plant Forward movement, Changing Tastes, Menus of Change. They've decided that, I'm going to give you two of their strategies here. They've decided that one big way is rather than try to educate people, you try to get them to change their behavior because they want to be in the in-group. They want to join with the folks that are doing the cool stuff. And this strategy is called identity management. And what the Plant Forward folks have done is they've recruited celebrity chefs to start preparing foods and promoting foods that are low on meat-based protein, or the meat-based protein is on the side of the dish. It's not the center of the dish. It's not necessarily vegetarian or vegan, but it's more, the protein is more plant-oriented. And then the celebrity chefs, of course, promote this, get rewarded for it, and the foodies and the other chefs want to be like the celebrity chefs. There are all kinds of awards given out so people can can feel good about being part of this group. There's competitions. Schools, universities even compete against each other for having the best plant-forward diet. So do prisons, believe it or not. And then you get seals of approval. You get stickers you can put on your menus and on your doors and show that you're a part of this plant forward community. So this whole identity management strategy has been to try to get the chef and the food system and then the consumers and the foodies to change their behavior, and that's been much more effective. Another way is through choice architecture, where we actually change the choice set that people are presented with. So you might think of a menu, and the menu doesn't have vegetarian up in one corner and then meat-based options down below, and you have to decide. Rather, the menu is all plant forward. There's like 10 or 20 choices. They all describe the protein as delicious and abundant and wonderful. It's not meat versus nuts or legumes versus steer. It's just protein. And the menu doesn't force the consumer to make a bad choice or a less sustainable choice. It presents them with a range of all good choices, of all plant-forward choices. And then, so the menu changes. There are cookbooks that have different recipes, so the recipes change. The food processors, the grocery stores, the whole food selection, people are just presented with better choices. And so as the system changes, you're not relying on the customer, on me, for example, to make a sustainable choice. You're just presenting me with a bunch of tasty, good choices. And so I change my behavior in part because the chefs are presenting me with good choices, and the menus and recipes I'm seeing are all sustainable. These two things together, because of the plant forward community, have had really substantial impacts on changing diets. Let me give you an example that might be a little bit more familiar. It uses the concepts of measurement, accountability, and responsibility. The idea is that if you measure something and people see it, then they might be held accountable. And if they feel like they're held accountable, then they might act responsibly and address the issue. You are already familiar with this strategy. The Sustainable Development Goals, for example, measure hunger, malnutrition, equity, education, poverty, biodiversity. So this is a way that nations compare themselves and, in essence, get motivated to get better because they can see how other nations compare against them. Another example would be how businesses use ESG measurements that measure the environment, qualities that they impact, the social equity issues that they impact, and the governance issues that they impact. And then consumers, investors, and the businesses themselves can see and compare and make decisions accordingly. So SDGs and ESGs are both examples of accountability. So let's say we're worried about deforestation in the Amazon, the lungs of the earth, and we want to slow it down. And again, this comes back to food, in particular soybeans and livestock. I'm not sure why I keep using food examples in this little mini lecture. I guess I'm hungry. But let me give you the example where an organization called the World Resource Institute, WRI, real established group, does a lot of this sort of work by documenting impacts and change on Earth. And here's a case where they created this platform, the Global Forest Watch, that allows people to go and look real time at what's changing. You can look at it from the last month or the last year, and you can see where things are going. And here you can just launch the program, and you can zone in on whatever area you want and see where the change is occurring, and then concentrate your efforts there. In this case, has really good deforestation laws. The Forest Code prevents deforestation on a lot of rainforest. But the area here is remote. The farmers are just trying to make a living. They're selling their produce to global consumers who seem to want it. And it's all these different actors are really hard to coordinate. But because we know where the deforestation is occurring and who's doing it and where it's being sold, because of platforms like WRI's Forest Watch, you can then go and coordinate the actors through these roundtables. And so here's an example where Greenpeace organized a boycott on McDonald's. McDonald's went to their suppliers, went to Cargill and ADM and other big aggregators and said, hey, we don't want to buy beef or soybeans from deforested land. And so the suppliers went back to the Brazil, went back to the farmers and said, hey, we're only going to buy beef and soybeans if you can prove that the land is not recently deforested. And so the farmers changed their use. The Nature Conservancy helped them demonstrate that deforestation that hadn't occurred recently. And so this whole certification program works out. And the round table is a group of businesses and government agencies and NGOs that kind of monitor this and make it work. So by knowing where the deforestation is occurring, who's causing it, and then figuring out how to document where we can still grow soybeans and still harvest and still graze cattle on land that was deforested decades ago, then the farmers are still able to make a living. We're still able to have beef and soybeans exported to around the world, and deforestation slows down. And this so-called soy moratorium worked quite well for years. It's still working, but it needs improvement. Okay, let's see, what time is it? I'm about 15 minutes in, so I should start wrapping up. Remember that I started by telling you that leadership matters a lot. In fact, it probably matters more than the science and technology and policy stuff. I mean, we need to know all those things and keep studying it, but also work on your leadership skills. Leadership, particularly direction, alignment, commitment, is how stuff gets done. We've got a lot of the tools and science and technology to already solve these big sustainability, these wicked challenges. So give some thought to how you might build those capabilities. And let me just remind you of some of the more intuitive ones. I gave you some stories about some pretty complex ones, identity management, choice architecture, and then accountability, just to make you think that make you aware of how many different leadership opportunities, choices, ways to have influence and promote collaboration there are. But of course, you can work on your own skill set. It's always good to be kind and curious and humble and hopeful, right? Tell a positive story, get people on your side. Be a good communicator. Work on your storytelling capacity so people can see roles they can play. Work on understanding the system and how people and stakeholders interact and opportunities for partnership and how to nurture those partnerships. Work on your team skills. How do you build high-functioning teams? How do you avoid dysfunction? How do you use after-action reviews or give feedback? These are incredible skills, as well as networking and lobbying. It's just an endless number of tools and skills you can practice. As I said, Mark Stern has a book on it. I've got a book on it. There are great opportunities. The College of Natural Resources and Environment has a leadership institute for students. So to take an opportunity to build these skills, because this will really be how you have impact in the long run. Don't wait for that promotion to the corner office or becoming an elected official to have leadership. These wicked problems demand all of us to lead from where we are, to see the bigger system, to ask questions about direction, alignment, commitment, to find tools that can have influence, because sustainable development is urgent. It's necessary, and it requires all of us to be involved. So good luck on your career journey. Look forward to seeing you in class and answer any questions you have.